Looking at this pond, we came earlier. The lower light's always better. Did a little in the little pond and jumped over here, and they look very similar area, similar color to them. This one's got a little more color to it than the little pond, but it's got a whole lot more diverse habitat, deeper edges, some cover, some things. So it's got some better fish in it than the little one does. But we see you notice we came down there. Yes, we saw some brim. Yes, we saw, but we see probably more than anything is a lot of these smaller sized bass, which is typical in ponds. I'd say this pond, off of our initial estimates, is a little bit bass crowded to fish. We weigh and measure them. They're a little on the skinny side. Not bad, not horrible, but a little less than 100% as much weight as they should for their length. And there's a lot of those. That's probably the most abundant fish we saw. We did earlier see some bluegill reproduction, a lot of little bitty fry and stuff from it. Obviously, there's a lot of bass, young of the year bass in here, so it's not really an issue of too few of fish or if you stock some more, something's going to change. It's a balance issue. It probably needs some harvest. I'm going to guess that the pond doesn't get fished a whole lot where people are removing fish, if I had to guess. Does that sound about right? You know, the mentality of catch and release bass fishing, throw them all back, they all gonna get big, is making management of bass fisheries harder and harder. If you want trophy bass, you gotta harvest. You gotta get rid of fish because this pond is constantly producing every year more and more of these fish this size, and they're competing with food and all that, same as all your other fish. So
this pond's absolutely loaded, with this size, bass, spawn this year. These are what, 8-month old fish here, and the pond's absolutely loaded with them. So somebody might come along here and say, man, we need to restock this pond. No, there's plenty of reproduction in this pond. Notice the color of this pond, the water clarity of this pond. Visually, we'll talk about being able to look in at the depth of the pond, the visibility. This pond has a visibility of about 28 inches. So if you're looking down into the water, you can peer about 28 inches in. And success on crappie has come when you've got about that type of visibility. When ponds I've seen overproduction is when you've got a real dense algal bloom. You can only look down into the water about 12 inches. You can get overpopulation really quickly. And also your crappie are the first ones to spawn, and so they can get ahead of your bass. We had several schools of bluegill fingerlings around. We had one ball of fingerlings here, one ball of fingerlings over underneath this little willow. That pier is absolutely, there's a shade too. That pier is solid bluegill fingerlings and fry. So it's an abundance of which they're actually a lot smaller than these. But here's your reproduction for your bluegill, which is also, that's just part of that food chain. And where does that food chain start? It starts with that color that we're talking about. The color that you're seeing in this pond, that's your microscopic algae, but that's the base of the food chain. So this obviously has a really good base. You've got very little aquatic vegetation around, and the why that is because of the algal bloom that's present in the pond. It's shading out anything that wants to germinate on the pond bottom and come up. So that's what's so nice about everything about this pond is nice, and that's why you don't have vegetation, as well as these banks here. You talk about long, slow sloping banks are a vegetation's dream, and so these banks, for the most part, they drop off pretty quickly. That's what you want. You don't want long sloping banks because that's when you're going to get that vegetation creeping out.
You could push the envelope by fertilizing it some more, a little bit, and grow more fish. But one thing we're going to talk about a lot up here is the goals. What are the goals of your pond before you just start saying, I need to do this or I need to do that, the first thing you have to figure out is, what do I want out of this deal, you know? But no, all in all, this pond looks good for a pond that has probably had limited management. But its sheer size helps it. The bigger it is, the more it's going to maintain itself. You can do an awful lot in little ponds, quarter acre, half acre, less than an acre, but you got to intensely manage that a whole lot more. The bigger it is, it tends to take care of itself more. It's more of a natural setting. So
You think, well, how can I improve this pond? You know, as good as it is, because it is a good pond. There's no, most ponds are not this good. This is a great farm pond. Additions, a couple of brim feeders, something like that, to congregate these brim and bring them into an area where they could be caught. Or it's just a supplemental feeding. That's something that you could use out here that would be an excellent addition, especially when you got kids. You know, that's the focus here is for kids, and so that's something that would help, especially around these piers, areas that people just migrate to, tend to focus on.
a couple more shade platforms or something. The pier could cover anything you can put shade out there, whether it's just a couple posts and a top on it, you know, anything. There's lots of coverage. And the good thing about a pond is you can use your imagination. And then you can get excited about something and see if it works. If it don't work, scrap it, go back to the drawing board. You know, there's a lot of it that you can't tell 100%. Yeah, that'll work every time, you know.